Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Brendan Housler with EVOQ Bike. We have Tim Wu on the podcast today, who is GluteDoperDoc on Instagram. And you might know my PT Scout, who is GluteDoper Coach on Instagram. Tim had me come on to just quickly basically tell him how I was pedaling incorrectly. And he goes into some really interesting aspects of what we're doing on the bike. And one of the biggest things with our glutes, when we sit down, naturally they turn off. Well, when we sit on a bike saddle, we don't want them to turn off. I'm going to leave the intro at that. Tim goes in depth, and you're just going to understand how much he knows about this from the conversation. And if you want to learn more about glutes and creating power on the bike, this is probably the podcast for you. Good luck with your training and racing. Tim, thanks so much for coming on, and we'll talk to you all soon. See ya.
We'll have to do like a double intro, though, because I was thinking about that. I'm like, oh, people will know you on your channel, but when we post it, so yeah, it'll be funny in that way.
Right. Well, then, why don't you do yours first? That way you can have like what you're doing, and then I'll do mine.
Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm Brendan Housler with EVOQ Bike. For those of you watching on the EVOQ channel, you've heard my intro before. For those of you that don't know me, on the Glute Doping channel, I'm a Cat 1 cyclist. I'm a cycling coach. I've been riding aggressively since 2009. I linked up with Glute Dopers in February to assess some glute back weird things I've got going on. And I'm working with Scout primarily, and Tim reached out to me after I did a ride where they asked me to report back what was activated and sort of lighting up at different wattages throughout a ride. And Tim said, this is very interesting. Can we do a podcast? And so I'm very curious what you're going to ask me or discuss. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. I'm pulling up. I'm on my phone, on the camera, on recording. So I'm going to pull up the email. Like, I literally read your email. It's like, I really want to question what's going on here. Okay. Do you want me to do my parts? I don't ever do intros.
Yeah, do your intro.
Like,
people that don't know, there will be people on EVOQ that might not know who glute doping is. So what is glute doping and who are you?
Hello, my name is Dr. Timothy Wu. I'm a physical therapist on Instagram and in the professional world of doing physical therapy and PT. Let me fix my camera. I am the GluteDoperDoc. What is that, do you ask? Well, glute doping is quite simple. If you have pain and it's affecting your riding so that you can't ride or you can't reach your potential, glute doping solves all of your problems. How? We do glute training, we do exercise coaching, we do physical therapy and rehab. Ultimately, we want you to be able to do this yourself because ultimately that's all you have. We've had thousands of successful cases on almost every continent, Antarctica pending, from every age group, from every walk of life, from our local 50-year-old pharmacist who're trying to get to the coffee shop ride. And we had our first like world tour, grand tour finisher of the Giro this year. So pretty fun.
Ooh.
Ultimately, I'm excited to pass on what I've learned as a racer myself. I still a Category 1. I haven't renewed my license this year yet. I'm still a Category 1 bike racer. I did one professional stage race once to see if I could and put glute doping to the test. So from the experiences we take out in the real world and from what we learn here at the Glute Doping Lab across so many different bike riders, we've learned how to fix basically every problem. And if we haven't, glute doping applied to a problem works really well. But on the top end of performance, we're still figuring out what you can unleash. And that's why I wanted to talk to you today, because I got an email from you and it has more information on zones of writing than I've ever read from a person who sent a message to us. I was like, okay, so I wanted to start there with like, what was the pain or problems that you started coming in with us? Like legitimately, like, I don't know you. I kind of do this on purpose. I have no idea who you are.
Cool.
I want to know is if like, what was your problem originally? So it's like, how did this help you? So that two things I want to hopefully get from interviewing you. One is that if someone hears a case or something similar to yours, they can go, got it. That might work for me. Not because like, I need more fans. Like, who cares? I don't care. What I want is more people stopping the quitting. Oh, I missed my ride today. Why? Well, And then all these excuses. It's like, okay, well, a lot of those are willpower. One's an emotional state. That's just like, you got to learn how to do the technique right? Why? Because ultimately, if your life is cycling, great. It's even more important to you. But if it's a part of your life that helps all the other parts either find balance or is a pathway for you to find some fulfillment, or is just like, God, it's so fun. Like, I love that part. If you're not having that as part of your life, it actually becomes a real detriment. Like, really, I get people come in here and it's like, all right, so your knee's hurting, you can't ride. Yeah. What's the real problem? Oh, I'm just so depressed. I'm so down. I'm like, whoa, okay. So it's typically something more than just the actual injury. And that's what I like to speak into here. So let me hear what your story is, because that's where we can get started, if that helps you get going.
Yeah, so this probably, there have been a lot of red flags for me from where I ended up in February 2024. But in 2021, I was living in Tennessee and I was on the side of the road. I started having some like hip pain, and in my hip and on my, it felt like my glute and a little bit in my back, and I couldn't really parse it out. And I did a little of my own WebMDing, and I'm really not a fan of that. So then I said, okay, I gotta go see a PT. And he said, oh, let me show you this picture. This is where your pain's presenting. It's your QL. And so I did a bunch of single leg glute bridges, fire hydrants, the very like vanilla stuff, and some dry needling. And in 5 weeks, I was back on the bike and ripping. And so I'm like, cool. Kind of stopped that stuff. And I went down to Florida where there's no hills, and it came back. But it was more like my glutes and hips. And so then I started thinking, is it my saddle? Like, what's going on? And then I moved to North Carolina where I was riding on hills, and I didn't realize this at the time, but all the inclines, now I'm forced to use more glutes. So it sort of masked the problem for a little while. Long story short, I get to 2024 and I'm doing, for people that don't know me, I train a lot. I'm doing 1,000-hour years, 1,100 if you're counting gym work. And just, I got to a point in group rides where I was having to lay off the gas because it was just searing pain in my hips. But the weird thing was, then I'd stop pedaling and it was gone. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's not that bad, right? Like the dumbest thing ever. I would get home and I'd be like, oh man, my back is really tight. And I'd be like bending over.
That's normal. That's totally fine.
Yeah. And
that'll buff out. Oh yeah. In the shower, that'll scrub right off. I got to do body wash. I'll be great.
I mean, I was ignoring a lot of things. And so then I did 30-hour week and did one of the last big rides. The next week was 6 hours, and I came back, and it wasn't immediately after the ride, but I started feeling my very low back by my sacrum was really lit up to the point where I was laying on my side, and that was the only position I could hold, and I could really not walk that well. And my husband's like, dude, what did you do to yourself? So I went to a PT the next day that squeezed me in, and he's like, man, whatever you did, you really irritated the crap out of this. And so we started hitting the QL with some dry needling. And at this point in time, there was an athlete who was working with Scout who was down in Florida with me, told me what you guys were doing. And I loved that there was an applicable relationship to cycling, that you guys obviously know the sport. You know what a 20-hour week means. And
they suck. Oh, yeah. If you don't know how to do it right, if you don't know how to do it right, like the first time you do it, you're like, oh my God, I'm on bike ride and do this forever. And then it's like, you have to like keep doing these. And they're not just like, well, I did 2 hours over here having fun. Like, no, it's like showing up to work. Like it's a real job at a certain point. Continue. Oh yeah.
I don't know if it's a job. I don't know if it's work. It's fun as hell, but.
Well, no. It's fun, but like we honor, like you have to work at it. It's not just like by accident, but keep going. Yeah, I love it.
So I was in Florida, had a really good PT that was doing like in real life stuff of the dry needling. And then I got into the glute doping program. And so fast forward to now, I'm probably 90% there. I can finally do endurance rides with no pain and feel normal. And I know what my glutes feel like. And I've really sussed out a lot of good stuff, but I can't go hard. So I just recorded a podcast with Scout about more along the lines of like 4 pillars of being a healthy athlete. And for me right now, we talked in that podcast of why rest is not always the answer. And I've still been riding and training and trying to race, but I've decided to pull the plug on the rest of the season because it's just really frustrating to go and be 50 to 80% if I'm having like a bad day with my body. So yeah, really focused on trying to figure out this motor control and how I'm sitting on the bike and posture. And this is what the ride was all about. And he said, hey, email this to our email. You saw the email, and here we are.
Okay. That helps a lot. You know what's fun is like, I'm just going to straight up treat you right now. That's probably the best thing to actually show you how glute doping works. All right, well, let's tell you. No, let me just show you. Like, oh, I know this problem. Okay. So for y'all watching, if you are listening, I'll have the email you sent. I like those voice memos because like, I've never thought of that. So
I take a lot of voice memos.
Tell me about what you did here. Like, what was your mindset about like going through this? Did you do all of this in real time? Did you stop afterwards and then brain dump all at once? Like, how did this go through?
I take a lot of voice memos on a ride, and I think it's an amazing thing that everybody should go through because you'll take
I've never
voice
done
memos.
That's smart.
Well, it's not even smart. It's just very interesting what you are thinking when the endorphins are flowing. I get back sometimes and my rational brain is like, that's so stupid. Or like, I'll think of a very creative post. I'm like, there's no way I'm posting that. But when you're on the bike, it sounds you're free, and it's a very interesting practice. So no, there's probably 25 voice memos, and I just transcribed them for Scout and was like, here you go.
Yeah.
And for context, I live in the Blue Ridge Mountains, so the ride is...
Thank you.
An hour is 2,000 feet of climbing. So I think this ride was like 4 hours, 8,000. And
awesome.
He had asked me, ride 230 to 260, 270 to 300. 300 is about where tempo starts for me. And then I sort of add a few more like pushes to get a sense of that. And there are some climbs that are, you hit 15% and you have no choice but to slug it out a little bit.
Okay. So I love this. So there's two things here. One is to develop this understanding. I'm going to explain what it is ultimately one of the like unseen purposes of glute doping, right? And then I'm going to get specifically to you and to your problem because you're in a great spot, which is like, I can ride and I'm not in pain. It keeps me from riding. Yay. But I'm not riding at the level or ability or with the confidence or with the feeling of safety or comfort or whatever that I know is even possible. But then there's the part beyond there, which is like, well, what if I fix these gaps in my like ability, which means somewhere in the ether, my glass ceiling's lifted a bit. So do you see how that mindset starts to go? You're like, and I love that. But glute doping is practical and black and white. And this is on purpose. I don't do fancy things. It's just a whiteboard. Because the purpose of glute doping is to have a framework to come back to that is proven and always works. That's all it is. And so glute doping is ultimately just built on truth, right? Like, why am I not just like some coach who did a lot of exercises all the time on Instagram and then come do my cool coaching exercises? I don't even do a lot of the glute doping stuff, which is funny because if you know what we're doing here, the idea is to what? Do less glute doping. It's supposed to be an integral part of your lifestyle if bicycling is part of your lifestyle. That's why I say, like, elevator pitch to someone who has no idea what I do. What's glute doping? Do you ride bikes? No, not for you. Cool. Do you ride bikes? Yes. Is it part of your lifestyle? Like you commute, you're a Cat 1 racer, you're like a gravel guru. Like, what is it? Oh, yeah. Like regularly part of your life. Yep. Great. Glute doping's for you. Because simply put, when did you learn how to ride that bike? Typically, when you're a child, right? Like, oh, I didn't fall over. Look at me go. Cool. That is the technique that you're riding your big grown-up bike with. What? No. But it's like, it's got the integrated cables and DIT. Yeah, I know. But you are 8-year-old so-and-so for me, 5-year-old Timmy on the bike. So that's ultimately in the unseen part of your physiology, the technique part that we've never trained to do this. So I used to work at a bike shop before I ever was a PT. And 5 years of doing that's very interesting because I'm not a great mechanic. So I'm great at selling people stuff. And I'm not like about selling people stuff they don't want. So when they come in all the time, most of the people at the bike shop, they come and ask for one of three things. They either want something to go faster, something hurts, or they just broke whatever they owe and they need to fix it. It's basically the three reasons they come in. How many times is the answer to the like something hurts problem like some product that ultimately never fixes it? We know this one. That's not new. Oh, just get gel gloves instead of actually position your body well so your hands don't go numb and then you can't feel your brakes, then you crash and die. It's like gloves. No, gloves are great. How about you learn glute doping, where the technique of cycling is that your body weight's actually loaded onto your core glutes like a human being's supposed to. And then from that, you can train the technique of cycling, in which there's 6 core cycling techniques and glute doping in 3 specialties, right? And ultimately, the glute doper can master all 3 of them. But one part of what makes a glute doper that I'm thinking that you're trying to develop right now is what you did in your voice memo. In your mind right now, imagine your power curve. Doesn't matter the numbers, they all look the same, right? Oh, mine's this. No, dog, you're a human being, which means what? You have the metabolic drop-offs that all human beings do. One of my other degrees is exercise physiology. So when we blend physical therapy, exercise physiology, trying to win bike races for 13 years and doing it like a couple times and getting a lot of lucky, right? But the desire being there, like if I won a lot, glute doping would not be that convincing. But I don't, but I'm there and I still have a whole life and I'm not falling apart. And that's what we're trying to get at here. So for you, what I noticed in your email when you went through your power zones, you said 300s around that tempo spot, right? So there should be on the top and the bottom ends of your power curve, right? Over here is like 1,000 watts for 5 seconds. Wouldn't we love that for 20 minutes? Well, then we'd be a dirt bike. So that's a problem. But down here, you have like, for me, it'd be like 120, 140 watts. You could do that forever. And so we understand the hard ends of the spectrum. Up here at 1,000 watts for 5 seconds, it's easy to get your glutes to do power to the pedal stroke because the demand on the body is 1,000 watts. Your brain, which is controlling how the body works, is like, so you want 1,000 of those W's? Oh, okay, we're going to find it like, we get 6 from the neck right here, 50 from the shoulders, But when you have that mindset of like, okay, if my peak power is like in 1,000 watt range, that means this body somehow has the capacity to generate how many watts? At least 1,000. So why not take this ridiculously powerful, full body, everything works together technique, just kind of dial it down into the like 180 watts range. And that's this idea that's different about glute doping. I love glute doping because it's all about what's happening in the unseen. That's why we don't have a lot of fun stuff. Like, I love when people are like, look at my video of me riding and tell me what's wrong with me. And I'm like, I can tell you what looks wrong. But unless you tell me what your experience is, right? This is part of racing. Like, you go look at the guy next to you and you're like, if they're a good racer, they're like this. I don't care if they're dying inside. You want to look what? Like it's nothing. So don't tell me that. But you notice inside, like, okay, when I start to move up the power curve, I'll start to either, old Brendan, just burn more where I was burning previously at lower power. Or if you're a glute doper now, as you start moving up your power curve, more things start to come online to add power onto. So the idea is that we always talk about is like fuel mix, right? Like, because it's called glute doping, one, everyone thinks it's a joke first off, which I love because you don't forget it, even bad jokes. Two, it's great SEO. Like if you have anything cycling related, the word doping, I always pop up. The third one is it's practically to help you remember to think about only 2 things. These are your guardrails in glute doping. Every exercise has a leader. Like, what do I focus on? Bro, it's called glute doping. Don't focus on the shoulders. focus on the glutes, because if you lead with the glutes, everything else will follow. It's how your physiology works. What's the doping part, Tim? Well, you shouldn't have to do that much and get a lot of benefit. I don't know about you. I'm not trying to spend 1,000 hours on the bike and another 500 hours glute doping in order to get 5% better. That's a huge waste of time. I can't sell that to anyone. But if I tell you, like, every day do these 5 stretches. Yeah, I know 1,000 of them. Trust me, these 5, get it done. Every time you ride, do these 2 things to pre-ride activate your body. It's called warming up. I'm a musician. I play 3 times a week. I still do it all the time, right? I always warm up. Been doing it for 2 decades, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to know standards, like you're working through in your glute doping programming. These exercises are literally reversed from like, all right, I'm trying to get better on the bike. I'm Timmy. I'm trying to do the thing. Ow, I'm in pain and I can't break through 4 watts per kilogram FTP. Ouch. Go back to the lab and play with exercises for years until, hey, you know what? Those hydrants with the funny arm for the bird dogs, the glute bridges, those 2 just done repeatedly, along with actually training on the bike, that's the other half, creates this stimulus for your body where, okay, I'm pulling something off of the cycling technique on the road, right? For you specifically, it's just the core tuck and the glute scoop from the glute bridging and the hydrants. I'm sure you found that, like, as soon as you learn that if I tuck my core, my glutes just turn on, and then everything else just lines up an ideal technique, and then 2 things shift. Your power goes up, your perceived exertion goes down, and your joy just goes through the roof. Have you done that yet? Usually in the lower part of your power range?
I would say the hip tuck, like the belt buckle up, yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think I definitely feel the glutes more on in certain aspects of the ride, but I can't say my joy is fully gone off because I'm not fully 100%.
Cool. So we're going to get there. And that's where I like to talk with riders, because so often we're like, oh, yeah, I've got this part, but, and I like to remind us, especially as coaches, when like, I'm not a great coach, but I'm a good PT. So good coaches always tell me, like, Tim, you got to control yourself and spend the time doing the base blocks and the zone 2 and the 6 months of just riding around easy, breathing through your nose. True story. Love my coach, Chaz. He got me to do the Redlands Classic. I was like, Chaz, I really got to ride around just that easy. Yeah, dude, you have the degree, you know. But what I established is I knew I was building a foundation to build off of. In glute doping, kind of functions the same way, and it should. Why would glute doping be this radically different from all exercise physiology, rehab science, and bike training experience? Like, no, it should fit seamlessly. So you're in the phase which is like all riders who are just building out their base for the first time. When we look at your power, when we work here at glute doping, I literally will take someone's like, all right, there's only 2 math problems that really matter in glute doping. There's like what power you want to get to and like how much force you kind of got to do that on the bike to get there. So on the bike, your speed is literally only just your gear ratio, right? Times your cadence, is it not? Like you and I,
plus aerodynamics, but yeah.
Yeah, like aerodynamics comes into like when we talk about the technique stuff. Like, hey, if you work on your hydrants really well and you keep that core tuck and you get 5 more degrees of pelvic posterior tilt, that yields you what? That yields you 5 more degrees of aero drop. That changes everything if you're a time trialist. 5 degrees lower and you keep the same breathing and the same biomechanics, your whatever surface area drops a lot. So for the power part of this, what you're experiencing is now in your lower power ranges in the endurance range. Let's say it's 200 watts. What I look at is the fuel mix. Like, seriously, make a chart. 100 watts are coming from the glutes, 50 coming from the quads, like another 25 from the calf, 8 from your big toe. Like, you got to have that mind chart. Like, what am I generating this power from? And why should I care? Well, I think you program for people, and I remember my coach would program for me 8 by 3 minute VO2s. 3 minutes? I got to do 380 watts and then rest for a little bit and then do it 8 times. Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't have great lungs. I don't have great other stuff. I'm really good at navigating techniques really well. And last time I checked, your power meter, I have one, only measures force applied to it. Doesn't matter how it gets there, correct? So if I take my arms and I do 100 watts, 100 watts is 100 watts. So I started playing the game, which you're experiencing, which is like, why I want your mindset to shift. Okay, if I'm doing my zone 2 and it's my endurance zone, it's 200 watts and 180 of them are coming only from my glutes. And I'm literally riding along and it's like, wow, my quads are like almost off. They will never be. But seriously, riding along, they're like, how am I riding along? It says 180. It's all doing everything here. This is just off. Well, for crit racing, that's how I do the first 45 minutes, okay? And my average power would be under 200 watts. And we play that game so that the last 5 laps where the average power is like stupid because you're going 35, right? So the idea of like, all right, if I can start now in the time where I've had to pull the plug on my intensity and training and racing, I don't have the joy of it, like all this crazy top end stuff yet. It's not there. Switch the focus to like, let me become the fastest with the leastest power with the mostest glutes. Why? Because from that foundation, I'm specific with my words, from that foundation, your ceiling is kind of like, you have no idea where it actually is anymore. And I really mean that. I could go on and on about testimony and cases that we go from this, but that's the mindset shift I wanted. And that's when I looked at your email, I'm like, okay, 230 just feels flowing, like not even riding, nearly Rico pace, recovery pace. Great, just feels flowing. Now, is it flowing like you're using all of your muscles and they're distributing the load? It's a nice democracy and they're doing the 230? Or is it like, no, it feels flowing, but my glutes are on fire. They're doing all of it. Maybe 200 of those watts are just from here. How is that possible, Tim? Very simple. When you're mounted on a bike and you're clipped in, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 axes of rotation, little 4 hinges. You have your foot clipped in, you have your ankle, you have your knee, and you have your hip. So technically speaking, you only need 1 muscle generating force at the most proximal hinge, aka the closest one to your body, to create a piston. I grew up loving trains, brother. So if you take a steam engine train and you just do it this way, like that, that's how I ride. That's how all our favorite riders ride. Because I've worked on them. And I'm like, all right, so Luke, what's your problem? Lemperti, true story. Well, when there's 4 climbs before the finish and a classic in Belgium, can't make it over and I can't win the sprint. But if there's 3, then I can. I'm like, well, that's the problem. Everyone can get over if there's 3. I'm like, so you need to win because you're the fastest guy who made it over the 1 extra climb. Yeah, I'm like, what's your current approach? Just climb a lot. I'm like, well, that's stupid. I said, what? Like, that's stupid because you're in pain all the time too. What you should do is what I just taught you. Train your body so that all of your base power, your endurance power, almost all your tempo power is 80% of that number is generated from the glutes only. That way, the shift becomes, well, I need my sprinty, fasty muscles for the finale. What happened? Well, he went back and then, I think it was 2 seasons ago, went to classics and started what? Making a selection, being the fastest sprinter in the selection, and then the selection be like, well, he's a sprinter, so we don't want to take him to the line, obviously, but there's hills. So what are they going to do? We're going to drill the pace over the hills to burn out the sprinter. And that's what you do because sprinters are sprinters. So they'll just, but if you're trained properly, you'll be like, no. Sprinting is what muscle groups. It's a specialty technique. True sprinting is hip flexors, hamstrings, quads, lats, and like your neck, if you know what you're doing. Like that's how, if especially when you get low, you want to move into a gap and you want to come off something, it's really in there. None of those muscle groups are truly required for what? Riding a breakaway for 40K. If right, especially in the World Tour now where you can't arrow face, you have to like do the puppy paws thing. Well, think about it. That technique, if you do it right, maximum core tuck, all glutes, lats dropped in, head low, and then just piston power. And if you're running the arrow wheels and you're running a smooth rotation, what do you get? No surging, because you're using the glutes to do all the gap closing in your rotation. Surging is what robs sprinters of all their power, right? In the quads. I was a lead-out guy. What do sprinters hate? Stop surging. Okay, all right. Smooth. So this glute piston power idea is because I learned that you need to be very smooth because the sprinter 5 guys back is doing this and it's burning off his quads. So you just experiencing like 230 feels flowing. 260, little more oomph, right? Just that 30 watts there, a little more power. It says you're sinking the core, quad, hamstring, maybe not glute. That's where I go, stop. That's the limit. Maybe not. We make this real simple. Are the glutes the loudest?
No.
But there's all this other stuff too. The loudest. I'm a musician. We do music. When I'm working a board or doing a mix and I want to hear my singer, his name is Tim, I don't just mute everyone else. No, I mix it so that Tim comes shining through, right? That's glutes, right? So what you're working on now is actually the most important ability that actually matters. So I'm going to talk to like the higher end racing part in a second, but does that kind of like, I want to pour that into you today from reading your email. Does that help you a little bit?
It does. And I'm sitting here thinking like, I don't know if I can mentally ride at 250 knowing that it's my glutes driving everything. Like that piston, I'm like, I don't, you know, if you said quad, I could feel that. And glutes, like, how do I tap into that more?
Oh, well, the 2 things. One, glute doping drills and training here. What's fun is the actual exercise library has never changed. If you the further you go into the exercise library and Scout or exercise prescribing more for you, there are older, crappier videos with the same shirt, some older house. My kids are like babies in them, and I've never updated the videos. I have better tech, I've had all this stuff, and I'm in business, and it's like, well, you should make your stuff pretty and update all this stuff. I'm like, nah, it proves my point more the longer they've been up there. I've never changed the exercises, but people keep getting better. Why? And that's what I love about breaking off these lies, because it's like, well, Tim, you're just lazy. It's no. I have the degrees. There's 3 of them over here, 2 of them, right? So let me tell you, don't bother with this 10,000 things. These 5 get it done. That is the most valuable thing in the world. It truly is, because we live in the information age. So our job as experts is to what? Okay. No.
So what are those 5?
This is what's for you guys. Those 5 things for glute doping are right here. You got to know your order of operations. I wrote this months ago. I never change it. Spine, core, glutes, knees, feet. Say it with me. Spine, core, glutes, knees, feet. Congratulations. You understand your neurophysiology. So neuro, meaning your brain, spinal cord, and nerves. Physiology, how it works. Tim, I don't know if I can confidently say that at 250 watts, which is that gray zone between my endurance and tempo, if my glute muscles are truly leading. Why do I want them to lead? Well, if you do your research, glutes have some fun facts. Ready? Least fatigable muscle group in your whole body. Meaning, like if you take blood samples of the muscle fatigue, they never cramp, they never die, they'll go forever. That's how they're designed. We want that, right? 2, strongest muscle in the entire body, period. And we want that if we're generating force on the bike. We want that. The third one is what we're most interested in glute doping, is the fact that because the glute muscles are the kind of central point for your lower body's nervous system, meaning like in your spine, you have these areas of your spine where you have a lot of nerves that control a lot of stuff. So on your neck and your shoulders, you have your brachial plexus. That's like if you get nerve problems in your hands, you have writing, that's here. If you have any of your back pain, anything related to stuff like you had too, all acute, right up in here, if you draw a triangle, like it's called your, I don't know, someone can correct me later, your thoracodorsal fascia or something. All it is it's an intense lattice network for all the nerves of your entire lower body. So the nature of cycling is that you have to sit on a saddle, tuck the core, sit in a posterior pelvic tilt, flip your body over, and then go that way. It puts so much just like strain and tension through here. This part of your body actually has a huge burden. And that's one of the natural burdens of the cycling position is you have to be in what's awful for doing squatting at the gym, truly. But cycling, like watch the Tour de France this year, just folded in half and going fast. It's like, okay, so there's something we got to get in between here. The order of operations is anytime your body goes and does something. I want to go walk, I want to go run, I want to go squat, I want to go ride a bike. When your brain outputs the pattern to go, the technique, the signal goes in this order. First, the spine. Check. Is that good? All right. Then the brain goes, okay, is the core doing its job? Check. Now the glutes. Check. Okay, how are my knees? Check. Okay, finally my feet. Check. One pedal stroke. You follow that?
Yes.
So practically speaking, what does this look like? If I took electrodes that detected the timing of when muscles fire, so time 0 to 1,000, and I had them on my spine, core, glutes, knees, feet, right? And I was going to go pedal, right? The brain signal, you can measure them. They're milliseconds apart. It'll be like bing, bong, bong, bong. If you slow it down. This is my first degree.
That's wild.
So when you understand, and here's a greater example. I worked with people who had strokes. You ever seen someone with a stroke? It's like, so if you're sitting here with a stroke, sensors, spine, core, chest, or shoulders, elbow, hand, it works the other way. If you're a cyclist, we never care about this stuff until you do a gravel ride. I love gravel. Jacks up your whole top end. Spine, core, glutes, knees, feet is going down. Spine, core, shoulders, elbow, hand is the other way. You take someone who's had a stroke and you put them here and you put all the things and you just want to reprogram them. If you throw them a ball and you're rehabbing them, you'll time the sensor. The core will fire, then the this will fire, and this will fire, this will fire, and that. And it's happening at this slow a pace. But cycling, if you do 85 RPM for 1 hour, is 5,000 pedal strokes. It's this fast. So you, Brendan, are in the middle spot, which is like when I ride easy enough or slow enough, hence the intensity of riding uphill. What does it do? Slows you down, harder power, makes you use your glutes. You have natural gravity to work against. Flat riding on the flat roads of Florida is the absolute hardest place to get your glutes to work.
That's wild.
Mm-hmm. So for you to practically apply this, well, why do I care about the order? Is that just fun? No, it actually, notice glutes are in the middle for a reason. This is both diagnostic and performance prescription. So diagnostically speaking, you said, what was the pain you first came in? Low backy thing, knee thing, something like that, right? Right? Oh, I'm a doctor, but I say low backy thing, knee thing. Why? Because who cares what the diagnosis is? Oh, it doesn't matter. It's a low back thing or it's a knee thing. That's either core's this, all of it. So if you had started off with a pain or problem down here in the knees, or you start having more pain or problems coming up here and here, what's in the middle? It's a glute problem. There's a rule. Ask any PT who's watching this or doctor who knows what they're doing in this kind of world. Proximal stability before distal mobility is the term they teach in kinesiology. Proximal stability. You can't fire a cannon from a canoe. I've tried. I have not a real cannon, but like I have a paddleboard and I was on it and I'm like, tried to jump, nothing happened. Why? The paddleboard went that way and I went straight into the water because it's basic physics. The reason glute doping is called glute doping is because no matter where your problem is, if you have a foot problem, if you have a neck problem, if you have a knee problem, those are symptoms. Your problem is all the way back here in the fact that you don't ride bikes correctly. Everything here has a job on the bike, a real job. And I ask people, all right, your knees are hurting. Yeah, what's their job on the bike? What? I don't know about you, but I'm a PT. So if you put me in construction, I'm not on the right job. I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm going to get hurt and I'm angry about it. I'm all dirty and pissed. Am I broken or am I just doing the wrong job? Oh, you're doing the wrong job. Great. So now that we learned that, spine, what's the purpose of your spine on the bike? Well, as a human, it's the literal axis of your whole skeleton. So that's important to remember. It's the foundation. 2, it houses, Housler, houses your spinal cord, which is the main line of communication from your brain to your whole body, and all the nerves out of every little spot. So anytime your spine is stiff, angry, or in a position it doesn't like, it responds in 2 ways. It stiffens up and locks down. I don't like that. Okay, still hold it. Which has a consequence. All the nerves, everyone thinks like, oh, the nerves, they just close the door like at the parking garage. No, dude, we're more complex than that. Your nerves literally get inhibited from the brain level. True story. You can test this yourself. Get out of bed first thing in the morning, go try one of your like hard glute doping ones like this one. Like, oh, I could never get this thing to freaking turn on. It's always weak, right? Do one set of those and be like, all right, glutes weak. Do open the book on each side once. Okay, get the spine going. A few crickety crackities. Crack, 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 crack. Okay, okay. Crack, 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 crack. Okay. Immediately retest that same glute exercise twice as strong. Every time. It's my favorite PT trick. I learned it a long time ago. In the office, you get people with weak glutes, their knees in pain. Okay, well, your glutes just need to be stronger. Also, I got to hit the gym and get stronger. Way later, right now, your brain doesn't even know how to call the glutes. No, I do. Really? Watch. And I put them in the PT thing, re-roll them here, and you do the crickety Cairo roll. It's the same position of the open the book. I'll retest their glutes, and they'll go, whoa, I'm way stronger right now. And I go, so did your muscle in 30 seconds increase in its force generating capacity? 50%? No. Then why are you stronger? I have more access? Yes, you do. Does that make sense? Why? Because when you get the crickety crackies, they're called cavitations. Those are little spots in your spine that all stiffen down. They open up a little bit. That response is you feel looser. Your nerves feel happier. They send more signal. You actually get more nerve signal potency and yada, yada, yada. Learning that lesson right now, I'm sure your mind just went, wait a minute. So on the bike, when it's like, I don't know if you do crit racing or something, when there's a lull in between someone just going for preems and my back's a little stiff, I mean like 2 quarters of cruising where I get up out of the saddle and I try to get a little bit of this, even if I don't get any type of crickety crackities, even if I don't get anything other than like a temporary little stretch for a second, I know what? I'm influencing my spine's feeling of mobility and safety and versatility to want to continue to send signal. So when everyone else starts to cramp, they start freaking out, start punching their freaking legs and taking their race numbers and stabbing them, because I read the Russians used to do that in the 80s, and I'm like, y'all are dumb. And I'll ride along and I'll do this. I'll take my 2 hands, put it right here in my spine, and just about the spot that goes pop every time I do the foam roll inhalers. Up on the saddle, straight shot, kind of grab by the stem so you don't all over the place. Little bit of that, just a little bit while you're going downhill. Okay. Open the book. Okay. Because we just finished climb 2. Climb 3 is going to suck. Okay. And we're not just gripping the frame on the downhill. I'll arrow tug to go downhill faster, get to the front, pull off to the side, stretch and loosen, float to the back, get back on. As the group goes into the next climb, I'm loose, I'm happy, I'm back on the glute piston, I got the maximum draft. That's how I recover on downhills. It's this, knowing that your spine does this stuff, knowing that prolonged flexion has an effect on your fascial kind of like, oh, that's why it feels so good. That's just the spine part. That's just one part of the spine. You still have the neck, you still have the thoracic part, and each one of them has their own categories of what? Problems the bike causes. So the glute doping offers two solutions: the solution to the problem, and then an advantage in performance out of it. Because I'm not here to just ride without pain. That's easy. Just take a lot of drugs from the pharmacy and you'll never ride in pain again. True story. I had people turn down glute doping because they understand the problem. All right. A lot of work. True story. You have to learn something. You have to train for it. You have to earn it. You'll ride better. You'll feel great. Or just caffeinate your brain to the point where you don't feel pain. And it breaks my heart when I see someone pick that option. Like, no, just learn this. So for the glute part, for you, what you're working on in your current thing is that the core and the glutes are trying to stay working together. And this is a challenge of teamwork. At 230, they're like, this is great. And like any team or any relationship or anything of trust, it doesn't matter what you say. It matters when you're tested. Oh, It's all talk until what? Lap cards come up. Do you really follow my wheel through stuff? I have too much footage of me being like, come on. Of me going through a gap and they didn't follow. Why? There wasn't the trust there. So what happens is glute doping should be a positive responding process where you do less over time, start to get more back. So for you, you got to press in right now on taking your riding intensity to the limit where you start to feel the glute as the loudest drop off. Go right underneath that and learn to navigate that problem. I don't mean just, well, 230 is fine, 260 is too much, just stick at 250 and hope for the best. No, ride 250 and then you have tools. You do the core tuck a little bit more. You do a little bit more of the glute drive through here. You try to work on relaxing the quads a little bit and get more power from here. You try to get a little more like, okay, well, if your low back previously was hurting as a compensation for a lack of glutes generating power, that's you. That's all Cat 1 racers. Why? We're Cat 1 racers. So comfort, who cares? Fast, low, aero. And we get in those positions. I'm all for it. But you're in the transition phase where you just discovered your glutes work. You just discovered the connection, right? And ultimately, you need to be patient because you are building an internally driven glute connection that is not pre-built into your body when you are born. Did you hear me say that? Do you know what I mean by that?
Say it again.
Okay. Let it sink in.
Not pre-built in, we got to learn it.
You have to learn it. Cycling is a technique on a machine built by human beings in the 19th century. 1860s, changeover in bicycle kind of comes along as like a universal toy, right? Doesn't become an activity for sport until like the first Tour de France era, right? So we're talking, what, 120 years ago, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
There's no way. No, we were not built to ride bikes. In fact, the nature of the bicycle inhibits everything in your body you actually need to perform well as an athlete by the nature of riding the bike. It's so like, people are like, oh, that's a great bike. Yeah, it's killing me slowly. Why would you say that? I'm like, because I know what I'm talking about. If you know anything, this thing slowly kills you because it puts you in all the positions that like, anyways. So the internally driven glute control is this. When you walk on the earth, when your foot hits the ground, sensors go into the foot, bottom of your foot, about 10,000 of them. Raw data comes flying up your nervous system into your brain, comes in. Beep, 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 beep. Your brain is processing all of this. The highest priority is what? Guesses? Like
Safety.
bingo.
Like protecting
You said it. Yeah. It's almost as like I love asking people because no one gets it wrong. I love asking people questions that unite all of us. Like, okay, what's the greatest concern of the brain when you're trying to do something scary? It's safety. Why? Because as soon as I tell you to do something scary, you're like, the safety twinge kind of comes. So that's how your brain works. And then judging whether it's safe or not, am I stepping on carpet, an alligator, wood, metal? Like, what am I stepping on? Yeah, it's fine. The output is what we call the motor control stuff. And the output from the brain, send it all. The order is spine, core, then glutes, then knees, then feet. So when I go to take a step, my foot hits the earth. It's fine. Use the glute to locomote me forward. Use the quad to extend my leg. Use my calf to come up onto my big toe. Use my big toe into 60 degrees of toe extension to come walk forward. That's called gait pattern. That's what every PT has to learn year 2. We all read the same book. We all memorize the same thing. Doesn't exist in cycling. You see the cool graph you Google once that's wrong because there's no source for that. And I would make a better one, but I just don't. I'm just too busy helping people get better. But the real gait pattern, how a cycling pedal stroke is supposed to work, has the glutes generating all the power. But if you don't have an ability to access it, you can't use it. So as soon as you sit on the saddle, just like you're sitting in a chair, I think, right? Don't change. Are your glutes on and firing right now?
No.
Why?
That it's probably bad posture and bad habits.
No, you don't need to. Are you okay? Now Photoshop the chair out of the way, and would you fall to the floor? Or do you have to like all of a sudden, All right, glutes off, man. I'm sitting on it. My brain's saying what? Why would I turn these expensive things on? It's hot here. I don't turn on the AC. Too expensive. Now, if I'm here, glutes off still. Now, if I'm here, glutes off still. If I move this away, glutes on now, yes?
Yeah.
Right? Or else I fall down. So, how come as soon as I sit on this, my glutes turn off?
You don't need, your brain's like, I don't need this.
Bingo. That's how we're born. That's how we're programmed. Your brain cannot tell the difference between doctor stool, the special TT saddle. No. The Roman carbon saddle. The Perineum Punisher physique saddle. Like, every spot's awful. Like, why bother, right? Everyone looks here. They're like, okay, this. And I'm like, brother, come sit. Bring me your custom saddle. Put it here. Brand new. Great. Cool. How's your glutes? They're off. Cool. Start doing bands. How come my glutes aren't on? The moment you put pressure, I call it the underbutt because we're a family. If you're anatomical, it's called your perineum or your seat position. Like, you've got a wet butt and you sat on the concrete and get up. The sensors here, as soon as you sit on them, the brain shuts off core and glutes. It's how we're built. It's standard anatomy. You cannot get away from it. It blows people's minds. Glute doping trains you to direct line to the glutes in any situation, anytime, during any activity, ever. Because it's how I became a PT. It was just like, when I learned you treat butt to brain and everything fixes, I was like, cool. Because the way the body works is, if you want more power at the knee, you first have to gain the stability of the spine, and you have to open a channel at the spine, keep the connection. You have to have the foundation of the core that's ready to do 500 watts. You have to have the power and the stability of the glutes to generate that kind of power. You have to have the knee joint integrity so it doesn't fall apart. And the hamstring and quads have to be able to regulate the knee control to even do the speed of that power. And then your foot has to be happy enough and good enough and enough sensor safety in the bottom of your foot inside of your carbon racing Cinderella slipper. These are awful, right? To transfer that power. And all the while your brain's got to go, that's safe. So your problem is not unique. It's not something I come up with because I read your email, you're special. It literally just falls into the system. I wrote this 4 months ago. The same diagrams I made 3 years ago, they never changed. Okay, so you're trying to get your glutes to be the leading power generator, and you've accomplished that in your recovery pace, which is the hardest, I'd argue. Why? Lowest power demand, hardest to access your glutes. I find the biggest breakthrough a rider makes on the bike in glute doping is when they can get 80% of their endurance power to come from their glutes.
That's what
Tim,
I'm
how do you
gonna be
calculate that?
focusing on today for sure.
Yeah, how do I calculate that? Honestly, you can't. But I love the fact that you can't, because we love being... I know how to do all the measurement-y stuff like that. We have a VO2 lactate machine here. I'm that guy. I'm even licensed to do that stuff. And I never have people do it. I tell them, because all that's icing. None of that matters. Like, none of your motor stuff truly matters until your drivetrain works. Right? So glute doping, we break it up 2 categories. Hi, you have a motor and you have a drivetrain. Your motor is anything involved turning oxygen and food into energy. That's my... I have kids. That's my explanation of my kids under 10. You breathe, eat stuff. Wow, you have energy to do stuff. Afterwards, you're tired. That's metabolism. That's your motor. Your motor's 9 years old. It's tiny. So I will beat you every time as long as it's over 10 minutes. Right? Because he's 9 years old. So that's motor. And I love it. And I'm not a coach, because there's a million coaches that understand how to train motors. And they argue about it all day. And then I love to ask any rider, and I go, cool, what is watts? What? No, what's the unit of measurement, watts? Oh, it's like force over time. Yeah, cool. No heart has ever jumped out of someone's chest and pedaled the pedals. No lungs have ever steered or gripped the brakes, get into the corner first. It's always the drivetrain, right? The most frustrating thing every rider comes to me for the past 7 years with is this: I can't go out and ride. Okay, why is that a problem? Because I'm losing fitness. I'm not being able to stay up with my training. I'm missing the big ride I planned for. It's like, got it. So are you just going to like rest and hope that problem goes away? That's where we get to this. It's like rest is a tool you use when your motor is too hot. A couple ways your motor gets too hot. You do big training weeks and like your resting heart rate's 80 and you sweat thinking about cycling and like you pee every 10 minutes for no reason. And you're like, I slept 12 hours. I can barely get out of bed. And I'll be like, doc, what's wrong with me? And I'm like, okay, I'll pretend to be all doctory. Like, okay, all right. And how much? All right. And 20 hours. And okay. And 3 Red Bulls on the ride. Wow. Okay. Brother, you need rest. No. That's for weak people who need to get stronger. You're correct. You need rest. And it's a prescribed thing. It's an intention. So there's rest, there's recovery, there's regeneration, and then there's recalibration. There's 4 categories of it in glute doping. 4 different categories. Recovery is not regeneration, is not recalibration, is not rest. They're all 4 different. So that's a whole other conversation. But for you,
and speaking with this, I want to highlight we're at an hour, so I want to see where you want to go, because the email, we won't be able to go through the whole thing today, and we can always do a part 2. But
no, part 1 is the important stuff, which is I want to deep dive that part of your email only.
Cool.
Because I could sit here and I thought about I'll do my part ending with this. Like, I could sit here and teach the glute doping stuff forever. That's not the purpose of coming on podcasts. Like, we have our school community, we have our website, we have our Instagram to like push out the content stuff. Like, I'll teach this stuff in there again. For you specifically, I wanted to highlight something laser focused. And that's what we do in glute doping. The idea is every encounter with glute doping, whether it's like I have a question for my coach, I see something on Instagram, I watch a video, I'm always just trying to get you to take one thing. It's either going to be something, it's usually some kind of perspective shift that makes the training and the programming effective. It works. There's a difference between, oh, it works, and then, that's an effective dude. You ever had, I had a coworker, he works, shows up. Then I'm like, that dude goes above and beyond, bro. Like, he even prunes the rose bush out front. That's the difference when you engage your mind and you engage your will. And so in glute doping, we really speak mostly into the coaching part. It's three things. Show me your exercises. Are your ballistic lateral lunges on Instagram you posted? Were they the ballistic ones? Like, do I jump off of them? Is that what you're trying to do? Or are you doing those slow
no, what should have been more ballistic.
Okay, cool. So for you, how old are you?
I'm 42.
42. So you're in your fourth decade, and you do what kind of bike competitions?
Road race.
Road race. Cool. Crits. So on a bike. So you've been doing this a while. So you know over the next decade, your fast twitch is gonna go. Well, it's just natural male physiology progression over time. It happens. So we're not trying to like get all the fast twitch with all this. What you need to learn is when you need to use the fast twitch you need. So one of the funny things is everyone that does their ballistic lateral lunges, they always jump off of it at a point where you would actually never jump off of. They come here and they go, all right, no, okay, there we go, right? No, I want you to come here and then, bah, right? All the way loading in super low and deep. You should be able to Photoshop this side of you and it looks like you coming out of the last corner first. Here's the mindset shift. Oh, it looks great. Don't get me wrong. But then glute doping always goes what? It's for you. You're the glute doper. So you're 42. You're racing kind of this stuff. You probably want a little more snap. You're doing the exercise already. How do we give you one thing that absolutely blows you apart? You go deep in the steep part is a term we say. Like in climbing, how do you make up time? You go faster when it's steeper. Everyone else goes easy when it's steep because they're responding to their feelings and their emotions and their physical experience, and they're not looking at math. Like, 6.2 versus 6.0 for this section, huge difference in miles per hour. Don't go easy here. Same thing for you. When you're coming out of the last corner or you want to get the jump on people, everyone thinks it's how much snap you have. It's not. It's when you use your snap. And I'm someone who doesn't have a lot of snap, but I have tons of video following people who have snap. Because all you have to know is where you get the hip flexor to get the drive to come over the top of the pedal stroke. But you know there's the snap to get the acceleration, but then you have to have the drive to keep the power. The best way to beat people who got snap is drive longer than they can. Best people to beat people who got drive is get it with the snap. So if you know where your limit is, you have plenty of snap. You're nice and poppy. You need to get low. So come all the way here, and then without looking, like don't look, straight onto the finish line, land all the way here, get all the way into the maximum depth you would on your crit bike. And then when you come out of the corner, push it as if you think this is left. Yeah, there's a race course I've won from a left turn, and it's because, pow, my first 3 pedal strokes out of the corner, I had the snap coming off of them just enough to get the gap, but then the drive was the glutes. So what you want is you want to feel the load, the snap, and the drive. So coming from here, blind landing. So you have to feel it. That way your foot starts working on the transfer. Because when you do the snap, your bike's typically 10 to 15 degrees sideways. It's not flat. So why would you worry about being flat? So don't do it on a flat surface. You just keep your eyes straight. So load deeper, take time to get here and go, okay, I found the maximum pre-tension of the glute. It should feel like you're pulling a spring back and you're just about to put the lock. Oh, God. Pow! Right? I have a BB gun. I live in the mountains and we shoot things that come into our place. Okay. Pow! And when you come off, I want you to go to full knee extension and actually go for a toe point. Seriously. Wow. Oh, God, Jesus. Oh, shit. That hurt. Okay. So here's why I went with that.
Bro.
That was funny. I did not mean to do that. I'll end with that. Clip it. I'm in these shoes, which you can do this for the foot. In your cycling shoe, you can't.
Oh my God.
So if you aim all the way for the end of the foot by starting from the glutes, it draws the power through the order of operations the correct way. Each piece lines up in order at the right time, and you just get safe, 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 safe. This shows that practically I'm riding along. My power started to go up. My perceived exertion was going down. How is that possible? You change gears? No. I just started refining my technique more. Margins, a little more core tuck, a little more glute drive over the top, a little more focus on pushing through the foot at the bottom, a little more like fluid with the bike. You'll see it go from 220 to 240 and nothing else changes. For like 10 seconds, then you'll find yourself go back to your stupid old like technique. And it's like, okay, time trialing is the best place to learn that like real control discipline of like where you use your body and then move it back out to the road bike. But that's the application from the glute doping exercise for you, getting really specific, for the stuff that you're doing, how to apply it on the road bike. And then you do that. And then you start making gains and you notice that that relates to that and it's better. You just keep doing that. Next, you add a band, you get a little bit of resistance to the lateral. Next, you add a little bit of weight, right?
Let me ask you, when I hit 330 to 350, one of my comments was like, and feel the glutes start to tighten up a bit. What do you think that is? And then my other thing is I'm noticing a lot of these different zones. It was definitely not glute driven, so that's something I need to focus on. But the back just naturally like gets into the pedaling motion after 5 minutes because I'm not leading with the glutes. What's the resolve for that? Besides, is that just the mind-muscle connection, like focus on using the glutes more?
So that's everyone's favorite recommendation, just mind-muscle connection, focus on the glutes more. That sounds great. If I said that, you'd be like, okay, cool, right? That's the worst advice in the world.
Okay.
Worst. You cannot think. I'm a language dude. You can't use the word think. You can't think about this stuff. How about you? Okay. This is just brag. Just prove like I know what I'm talking about. This is the Redlands Classic. It's a big bike race here in Southern California. Our office is on the race course. That's me. I know what I'm doing. I'm in the pocket behind Legion. You'll never find me there. So when we have to think about doing this kind of competition, for 90 minutes, I never once was like, okay, keep the glutes on through turn 9.
Right.
I have the whole footage of the whole race. It's awesome. I watch them and go, I don't remember doing that. Okay, right? Never once was I like, all right, I'm going to shoot the gap on the inside of Freddie Ovett right now. Glute scoop. No, I just did it. That's what we're ultimately trying to get to in glute doping, is it's training. I love content on the internet, like, oh, I'm going to think about your training. And I'm like, you can't think about training. Training is what you fall to when it hits the fan. That's why I love racing, because I'm not good at training. I'm really bad at training. But you put me in the scenario and it's like, you either make this gap or you don't. You find a way to get some of that power, correct? So my recommendation practically for you is this. In your on-bike riding right now, sounds like you're not doing like any build-ups for racing anymore. I kind of pulled the plug there. So you got to have the freedom to do what? Have your training not directed by your schedule, the calendar. That's a professional. I have to be ready in 6 months. It might take 8. Well, doc, so I'm hiring you to make it happen in 6. Okay, all right, let's do this. No, that's not a limit for you. So I would recommend this.
Well, it is.
Don't try to worry
I'll
about
pause you there because I am at 6 months. So there is a limit of next season.
Fine.
Like I need to. Like I'm getting fatigued also.
You'll be fine by next season. You'll be fine by next season. This doesn't take that long. What I mean is you actually have to spend more time riding in the lower intensity zones, not for your motor, but for your drivetrain. Seriously. And you need to start challenge. There's 3 areas in your power curve that are hard. The endurance power, which is like getting big muscle groups to work on low power for a long time. You're starting to get that. The middle is the hardest. I'll explain that later. The high end is easy. That's why people get deceived. It's like, oh, I use my glutes all the time. Like, yeah, at threshold, because if you don't use your glutes at threshold, your knees get ripped in half and you call me because your knees are in pain. But anyone who comes from any type of athletic background that's land-based, like they were a runner, they came from soccer or basketball or triathlon or something, some kind of background like that, they'll have enough natural glute activation that when they ride the bike hard, they'll get it going. So the hard part is the hard intensity.
Yeah,
is
the
the
hard's
easy
not
one.
the bad. It's the tempo. It's the
Now, why this middle part? And it's we jokingly call it the dreaded middle. And in my opinion, as an okay bike rider, I'd argue that middle power range where we kind of like, that's somewhere in there. If you learn to master the middle, you can punch way above your weight on the bike. Not because you got more training, got more power. If you master the middle of the power curve, what I mean by master, well, there's numbers. So there are 300 to 360 or whatever. So, okay, for those 60 watts, what do I have to master? Well, there's 6 cycling techniques. Ready? Your hands are either on the hoods or they're in the drops. You're either standing or you're seated. And then you're either cadence is high or it's low. That's it. Specialties are time trialing, sprinting, and aero puppy paws. Those are specialty techniques. But the core 6, if you want to do 300 watts, you can do the exact 300 watts for 1 minute, these 6 different ways, and it would always read 300. You can stand high cadence in the drops. You would look goofy as all could be, though, like you're sprinting in a little rate. You could sit hoods low cadence, 60 RPM, grinding up a 12% hill. That's 300 watts. So you see my mindset here?
right.
So at the low end of your power curve, your body, it's so low, 150 watts. The body's like, oh, you have to train your body to what? Turn on all 1200 max watt power, but just idle it at 120 and roll along. It's like my neighbor's Corvette. Cruises along 5 miles an hour and he's got 500 horsepower back there. His car does 5 miles an hour amazing. That's me on a bike. Under the hood with the self-control. The top end, 500 watts, easy to get the glutes. But that middle is where the magic happens. Because if you know anything about bike riding, is you have my zone distribution. Yeah. In actual racing, though, you're either not pedaling, going stupid hard, or you're what? Somewhere in that dreaded middle where you're like, I'm on the rivet, I'm on the rivet, I'm on the rivet, I'm on the rivet, I'm on the rivet. They can't do this for another lap. Okay. And then recover back down. So I found that in those moments where you're riding that middle to try to recover in between the high-end efforts, surges kill me, right? My strategy is, okay, in the dreaded middle part, I just survived the last surge by doing quad city. They literally cramped out. So I'm either going to get dropped, or when the Peloton kind of recovers and I'm still at high tempo, I can use my glute doping. I go, okay, core tuck, a little bit, okay, this. Drop the shoulders, get some more lats. Lats fire the glutes through your posterior chain. That gets my glutes on again. I can wiggle out my quads through a few corners, but I'm still pedaling with the glutes. True story. Pedaling along, doing the thing. Still pedaling, though. And it gives me 5 or 10% margin in the fatigue and the burn and the gap that I can do what? I can nurse my way back into the group after surviving something I shouldn't have. That's the skill you learn in the middle. Don't worry about that one yet. Master the low one. Because every time you get better and better at getting more power from the glutes and louder glutes at the low end, when you creep into the... it's hard to discern. You'll carry some of that glute strength maybe 5 or 10 watts further into that zone for about 5 or 10 minutes, and you'll literally feel like the connections start to go... And physiologically, that's what's happening. Like right now, that struggle for connection at that intensity is like the nerves trying to not divert signal to their old compensatory strategy when you reach that power threshold. Glute doping is about coming right under that and going, it's okay. We're going to keep the glutes on up a little. It's okay. It's okay. And over time, now you don't have to do a lot of this. Imagine when it shifts only 20 watts. Imagine when it shifts 20 watts, your glute fall off. Like mine is kind of around VO2. My glutes kind of start to fall off and how loud I can hear them, but I know they're on. And that's what takes you through the middle part is there's a certain point, 500 watts, I'm not really going to feel my glutes a lot. Everything else is burning. Like if I really have time, like, okay, I'm feeling back there. I have to operate more in the assumption and the trust that that connection is on in there. Afterwards, I know it's there if my knees aren't killing me. And like today, my glutes are so sore after the race. If I didn't do that, and I know they fell off during the high intensity stuff, my hamstrings usually feel like they ripped off my bones.
No.
Yeah? Does it help you understand? Like, all right, focus here,
Yeah.
This is nerdy stuff, so I'm glad you like it.
Yeah. No, it's good. Closing thoughts.
It's real simple. My closing thought is this. There is no pain, problem, or injury that you cannot be healed from, be rehabilitated from, coached out of, or trained out of, and back to the bike. By this point, we have can't. I have someone who electively had their leg lengthened 2 inches so it matches the other one. And 9 months later is smashing time trial rides in Florida. It's been 2 years we've been working up to the point, okay, we might as well get your leg longer, right? I've never once done a custom exercise video. It's only been the glute doping standard issue exercises. And I make it a point. Everybody has the power to access the ability they want and get out of pain. You just have to engage your will and actually want to do it. So I encourage you, if that's you, like follow me on Instagram, come join us on our school community, which is free. We teach all this stuff here. We're releasing here's the actual programming. It's a screenshot from True Coach, like what you go and pay for. Seriously, not to diminish what you go and pay for, but you've understood yeah, man, you can have the recipe, but if you don't go and do the thing, it don't matter. And that's what I encourage people with is the lies, you had to be born a certain way. The lies, you have to have a certain type of experience. The lies that I have to be wanting to race or compete to even worry about this stuff. No, like you said, if you're not experiencing the joy that you should or could be experiencing out on the bike as part of your life, and your physical pain or body or something wrong with how that part works is your problem, the answer is glute doping. Not to promote myself or to bash anything else. It's because this is just the branding I put on what we figured out works over 8 years, because we figured out what doesn't work from any type of bike rider across the spectrum. So thank you for having the time here, and I'm glad we could dive into a lot of this, because I hope that everything or anything you learn from us, that it helps you grow as a coach. It helps you encourage your riders to expand the parts of their thinking and their riding, because I hate when any kind of rider gets to the point where they're feeling kind of stagnant. It's hold on. There are aspects to doing this thing that we just need to open your mind up to a little bit. And, going inward is where a lot of these answers are, right? I still nerd out on climbing a hill for 20 minutes and being okay, work the technique. Okay, keep it locked in. 100,000 miles probably of doing, okay. There's something to that. And so if it's valuable to you, don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it. Don't let anyone tell you shouldn't be doing this anymore. Give us a call. We answer everything for free. And at worst, you'll get some help in the right direction. I mean, at least you got some. So
totally.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. I'm looking forward to getting back to 100, and everybody give him a follow, and thanks for listening. Tune in.